Episode
Professional
49.
start to episode 49.
With our very special guest, Max Fite. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Max. Long time coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. I think we've known each other for almost 7 years now, which is crazy.
Yep.
At our place of business that we will not refer to the name of.
Yeah.
Place of business brings people together, man.
Yeah.
Definitely does that.
Yeah.
So, Max, how long have you been out in California? Originally from California?
I was born in Florida.
Okay.
I kind of say like I was born in Florida and more raised in Seattle.
Okay.
I was like early teen years when I moved to Seattle.
Okay.
I moved to Santa Barbara first in California. Then I had a brief little, let's call it a stint in Santa Barbara. And then I moved to LA after that. So I've been in LA for August will be 19 years.
No
Okay.
shit.
Yeah.
What did that 20-year mark
Been here.
fucking is interesting. I hit that like 2 years ago. I moved out here at 20 and then like
Yeah.
hit the 20-year mark in like 2023, so last year. And it's a trip, man, having half my life in Wisconsin, half my life out here, but really your adult life. I mean, the 19 years you spent in LA is like really like where you chose to have your mail forwarded and stuff when you're moving around with your parents. It's not like by choice. You know, it wasn't like you were like,
Yeah.
Mom, let's go to Seattle. You know what I mean?
So you are a musician,
Yep.
writer, producer of your own music, performer. And when did that all start for you? Like, was it right from the get-go? Were you like the kid in the garage band thing in high school, or like, you know, how did it all start for you? Where did you get that itch, or where was that first moment where you're like, I want to start playing music?
I remember it very clearly. I have a few like very pivotal moments when I was a child where I remember it went from like I want to do that to I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I saw Back to the Future, and I've heard like some
Yeah.
people like tell this story before. They've had like I'm sure many, you know, people around my age or whatever, or
Yeah.
whenever they saw that movie had the same feeling. But when I saw the Marty McFly like doing Johnny Be Good,
Yeah.
and I was 5 years old when I saw it. I remember it clearly. I was like, to this day I love Michael J. Fox. He's
Yeah,
one of my
for sure.
heroes.
Yeah. National treasure.
Yeah, but that was when I first was like, what is that? Like I was like, I want to do that. I used to
Yeah.
listen to a lot of 50s rock with my dad,
Yeah.
and I loved 50s rock before I saw that. So
Yeah.
I was like familiar with that song, even at
That was
5 years
also
old.
common on the radio on the oldie station. They played 50s rock now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but there is no longer that like market for that music. But like, that's like some of the most like quintessential childhood moments that I have too. Is like with my
Yeah.
parents listening to like 50s music and stuff, like
Yep.
all that kind of shit, man.
Yeah, what is it, Johnny Be Good?
Johnny Be Good, Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
Yep. So I still don't have that guitar. I have close to that guitar that he has. It's just a different color. But someday I will have that like late 60s Gibson ES335, just putting it out there.
What do you think that thing's worth?
What's that?
What do you think that guitar is worth?
Like the actual one in
Yeah.
the movie?
Well, not the
Or
actual
just
one,
like-
but just that model.
Probably. I mean, there's a lot of different like
Yeah, you can-
specifications
Yeah.
that can. But if it's like in like really good condition, probably at least 15 grand.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to say.
That's crazy.
Maybe you can get one for like late 60s. I think
Yeah.
that was. I'm guessing. But you could talk about 1961 or just, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. It's just
Yeah, a
all
billion
around, but-
different options for that.
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely the first moment I remember. The second was my first concert was Lollapalooza.
Okay.
And I was 12, and I saw Pearl Jam, Soundgarden,
dude.
Chili Peppers, Ice Cube, and I listened
Yeah.
to everything from when I can remember. I listened to everything from like hip hop, country, 50s stuff, soul, rock, hard rock, whatever heavy metal I could listen to. I mean, grunge,
Yeah.
like everything. I was just kind of obsessed by like all genres. So,
Yeah.
but when I saw that show, I went with my friend Patrick, and his dad took us. And that was the first day I smoked weed ever. That was
Oh, shit.
like I remember his
How
dad
old
gave
were
us.
you?
I was 12. Yeah, I was
so
like
crazy.
so we were on this hill. Like all I remember is like we were on this hill, and like my friend's dad like had a beer in his hand. And he let us like take a sip of the beer, and then some people. I remember smelling weed, and I was like, "What is?" I was like, "What is
Yeah.
that smell?"
Yeah.
You know, it is like my friend's dad explained to us, and we figured it out. My friend Patrick and I. And I don't remember like clearly what happened. I just remember like whoever was next to us was smoking some weed, and like they gave us either a hit of the joint or something.
Yeah.
And it was like there was an all-girl band. I can't remember the name of the band I could find out if I Google it, but they were playing, and we were way up back on this hill, and then all of a sudden, my next memory of it is like Pearl Jam came on, and I think they played Even Flow, and this is in '92.
Yeah, so like the peak
The prime, yeah.
Pearl Jam. Like,
Oh, they were like the biggest.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
like Pearl
for sure.
Jam, Soundgarden, and they were my favorite bands.
Yeah.
So when they came on, I remember Patrick and I looked at each other, and then we looked at his dad, and he was like, "Go," and we just ran down the hill. And I remember being in that, like, as close as I could to the stage, and I was little. I was
Yeah.
like a little dude, and I remember clearly being like, that was when it was like, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I want to do that. I was like, I'm going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that day, for sure.
That's crazy,
That's
man.
nuts, man. That's
It's
an
always
awesome
something
fucking
like
show.
that, like something where you're experiencing some live music. Usually, like live music and seeing that is just like takes you over. But what made you like? Were you like, okay, after that? So you had this moment that inspired you, and you're like, I'm gonna do that. So what was your next step? Did you give yourself like, okay, in a year's time, or as soon as I get home, I'm gonna, get a guitar and I'm gonna start practicing, or I'm gonna start a band, or like, did you set a goal for yourself to like get you on that path? Like, what was the next move, I guess?
The next, I mean, thinking back to that time, like, I was playing a lot of sports, and my dad was my dad was like the father who was like over, living vicariously.
Yeah.
All that stuff. My dad was like that's his thing, was sports. So it took me a while to get there to where it became like realistic. There was a guitar in the house. My dad loved music. My dad was, he's always like showed me music and all kinds of jazz stuff and blues stuff.
Did he play too?
No, my dad plays little drums for fun. Like in his 70s, he started like picking up the drums. It's just a hobby, obviously, but
Really?
so it was there was a guitar in the house. So I used to tinker around, and my friend Patrick had a Fender Strat. I remember it was like, he had a Fender Strat.
Yeah.
And like he showed me a couple of things, like a Chili Peppers riff and a Nirvana song or something. And then I moved to Seattle. And so when I moved to Seattle, it was kind of like, it took me a while, to be honest, because at that time it wasn't like I could just go and, learn or like go on YouTube. There wasn't any, it was still in the 90s. Like, so, it took me a while to get there, to be honest. But then like when hip hop became this other massive thing in the 90s, like with Wu-Tang and Nas, and I was super into hip hop, it took me away from wanting to do rock music, and I got into that aspect of expression where I was like writing rhymes in high school, and like I'd be at all these parties in Seattle, and we were all like, everyone was just obsessed with hip hop. There was so many great, I've been inspired by like all those acts like Outkast and I could go on with the hip hop stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Biggie
and Tupac.
It's interesting though, because like that kind of like just basically like broadens your stroke, right? So you have the music thing you're trying to tackle with like learning how to play an instrument, but then also getting like the lyricism down from like being inspired by hip hop. Because some of like the best writers are, I think, hip hop MCs and shit. Like they have some of the best fucking lyrics and fucking puns and similes and all that kind of shit. And there's like that's just interesting that's how you kind of like got the to where you're at. Where then you got into country music the next year, or what?
It's kind of crazy. Like I started getting super into hip hop. I started writing rhymes, and I'd be at parties like through high school and after high school, and I'd be like, I'm not good enough to rap, but I would try it. And I'd be drunk and partying, and I wouldn't really care, but I would beatbox, and I really like. So I would get kind of that I got the first taste of like performing. Being at these parties, and I had friends that were like actual like doing rap music, and so when I started shifting, when the Red Hot Chili Peppers, right, who I'm not as into now, but when I was a kid I was, and particularly John Frusciante, who's the guitarist. He's back in the band now. He's the guitar player. When he rejoined the band in, I think it was like 1999. Before that, again, you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have like this or that, but you would maybe see something on MTV News, or you'd be able to like get your hands on like a some kind of a magazine or something to read something about these artists that you love. And so I had known that John Frusciante was going through a hard time with drugs and was like on death's door, and he found a way to get off the drugs or whatever it was, and got back in the band. And when he got back in the band, they put out that album, Californication. I was like, oh my God, John Frusciante. And then I saw them play like 6 times that summer. I think it was like the summer of like 2000. I was just out of high school. And I was like that. Oh, I'm back. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And I would go on John Frusciante's side and just like stare at him in awe and be like, oh, you know. So
Yeah.
that was when I was like, I'm doing this, and that's when I started actually like, okay. I
How
need
did
to
you
start playing.
learn guitar? Are you self-taught or did you take lessons?
Oh, all the above. I started out like with friends showing me stuff, self-taught, listening to records, trying to play along the records. I took lessons. I studied classical. So when I moved to Santa Barbara, when I say moved, I mean like my dad was like, "Get out," you know. No joke. It was like I was like hung over on the couch, like, "You need to go."
Yeah.
So when I got to Santa Barbara, I was kind of one of the things that spawned that that drive to do it was I was in a new place and I had none of my old friends that I was used to partying with, and that was kind of the idea, right? And I was just by myself all the time. Where I'd wake up and I would just grab the guitar and I had like a piece of paper with like chord tabs, and I would just sit there in the morning and just, you know, for hours. And I didn't have anyone to really hang, you know, not too many friends, so that's kind of how I got like in a routine, in a pattern of like clinging to it.
Yeah.
You know, for like something to do and like that enjoyment. And every time I would learn something, I would, you know, be more driven to like learn more.
Exciting.
But then I studied classical. I went to like a city college in Santa Barbara. I did like a year of classical there, and then I moved to LA, and I went to LACC and I did classical there, and I dropped out because I joined a band. And then I learned basically just from being around better players.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, show me that. What is that? And then after that kind of like, and I was taking lessons at that time too, just like with a one-on-one teacher for 3 years. And when I felt like it just wasn't enough to like get me over the hump to where I wanted to go, and I didn't feel confident as a musician because I just didn't I was like, yeah, I know what that sounds like. I could probably figure that out by looking or listening and sitting there for a long time, but I didn't understand music the way I wanted to in theory. And it's like, how do I play? If this guy's doing this on the, you know, playing these chords, how do I play over that or solo over that?
Right.
Or those kind of questions in my mind never like were clear all the time. So that's when I went to school, and the band I was in broke up in, I think it was like 2010. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going full on. So I went to a school called Musicians Institute.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And that's just like, you basically just live and breathe guitar and music.
Yeah.
How
You know.
long did you go there for?
2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that the one in? I'm sure there's a bunch of them, but I know
Hollywood,
there's one
right?
in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's the one in Hollywood.
The one in
yeah.
Hollywood. Okay. Yeah, I see kids out there all the time. People from, I mean, I'm all ages are there, and it's just like, you know, band camp basically. You're just like there, all music. Everyone's like outside with their guitars on their backs, or their drum kits, or whatever it is, and you're just like studying.
Oh, I lived right in that area. Every day I'd be walking up Hollywood Boulevard with my guitar, you know, thinking I was like,
Yeah, that's like the cool thing, man. That's like the fucking march to, like, you know, down like the boulevard, man. Like, to literally, like,
Yeah, that's like the coolest college like you can
Yeah.
go to as a musician. I think like just because.
I think so. I
It's
mean,
in the best city, you know.
for me, it was, you know, I think it worked out because I wasn't really meant to like go full on and study like crazy jazz stuff at Berkeley for 4 years and do all that. Like, and I found out at Musicians Institute what I wasn't going to do with music. You know, like the first 6 months I was just like obsessed with playing guitar, and I learned so much theory, and it was coming together, and I was just getting faster and learning things really fast, and you know, just like my playing like grew exponentially in the first 6 months. And then I was like, all right, I'm bored with just trying to like play fast, because I just wasn't really
right.
Because it's like the whole reason why I got into music was the way that songs made me feel.
yeah.
Right.
Was the way that Sam Cooke like made me cry when I was like 5.
Yeah.
Like I remember that feeling, or like Up on the Roof, like
Remember what song by Sam Cooke that made you cry?
Change is Gonna Come.
No shit.
Yeah.
Do you know that, like, that song he wrote after Bob Dylan wrote, like, the fuck is it? I forget what Bob Dylan's song inspired him, but he was like, kind of like, oh shit, man, this guy, this white dude is doing something for the cause, and I'm not, and I'm like, you know, part of this whole fucking movement. And then like that's why
I think it was
he
like the
wrote this.
Medgar Evers, Bob Dylan. I think that was what that was about. I can't remember, but
Yeah.
he was like on a train. I remember just like seeing a video years ago where he was like, it was like early 60s, and he was like on some like train tracks or something like that, where he was.
Yeah. Sam Cooke's like one of my favorite artists of that fucking genre, man. I think he's like amazing, and like just has like a huge catalog of music, but like I didn't really realize how big of a pop star he was back then, because during the pandemic I did this like deep dive, like, and went down a rabbit hole watching like as many live performances of him and stuff like that, and like just hearing him like kind of come out, there's like He does a live show at some little cabana club or something like that in New York, and give that a 40-minute listen to it, because it's just it's the closest you ever get to seeing him perform live, but it's fucking amazing, dude. The guy's the shit.
Yeah, he stood up
Mr.
for a
Soul.
lot of civil rights stuff, more so than, I think a lot of guys could back then.
Yeah.
Based on their career, and he was.
Well, that's why they think he was taken out by the government, because he was kind of a dangerous thing, where it's just he was so favored by both blacks and whites that if he called to action it was a threat, because you have the two civil rights leaders like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, and it's they're known as those leaders, but this guy who's a pop star who's on your TV in every house is dangerous call to action types for get him out. That's why his death's all fucking confusing as shit.
Yeah, there's that whole. That's shady at best.
Did you ever watch
all those details?
there's the double
brutal.
murder of Sam Cooke? It's a good documentary on Netflix, and it's just
I think I did see that.
yeah.
I think I've seen. I mean, I've watched a lot of Sam Cooke stuff,
Yeah.
but I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's fucking.
So you had that epiphany, kind of going back to your guitar learning experience. You had that kind of epiphany of okay, I don't want to be a shredder. I don't want to put the effort into doing something where I'm more interested in writing a song. And you had the fundamentals down of being a guitar player. So you're okay, I have what I need to kind of go out there. Do I need to spend 5-10 years learning how to just do all this crazy shit that I'm kind of the same way, where I feel all that stuff is cool, and I love guitarists that can just shred and do all this cool stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm a good song or a good voice or those things are more important to me than a killer guitar solo, and I just feel so much time and effort has to go into that. If that's your thing, that's awesome, but you really have to want to be that. You have to really want that a lot. It's hard.
I think that I know so many musicians of all sorts in the world of music, right?
Yeah.
I know guitar players that are oh, that dude is such a guitar. He's meant to be a guitarist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Joe Perrys of the world.
Yeah.
I know a lot of guys like that and girls like that, and a lot of people that can kind of weave in and out. So I think for me, I had gone through such a crazy youth, and I had so many crazy experiences, and depression and mental health stuff and drugs and addiction and all this stuff in my past that was coming back up, when I was in my later 20s, and then it became evident. It was it just started kind of naturally happening where I wanted to write all the time, and I transferred my old memories or skills of all the raps I used to write. I had books and notebooks of raps that I used to write, and not many people have seen these, but this is when I was a teenager, early 20s, and so I started naturally gravitating towards having this need coming from somewhere to have to say something, and it was obvious that I was gonna, and now that I was getting better at guitar, and that whole process kind of just took a life of its own. And then there were certain people I was around at that time, my friend Jamie, who lives in Syracuse, New York. He's a really good singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, talented kid, and plays all kinds of instruments. We would be joking around and having fun at school all the time, and we would be quote unquote practicing, and there's all these practice rooms there. So I remember one day we were in there, and I played something for him, and he had a whole album that he had made. He's younger than me too. He was 18 at the time, and I remember he gave me the album, and I was really impressed. How did you make this? And this is 2011 or something. Yeah. So it was a little different, where it wasn't as easy to make something that sounded professional.
Yeah.
So I remember I played one of my songs for him, and immediately he was like, "This is what you're supposed to be doing." He was like, "You're a songwriter." I never forgot that. He's like, "Dude, you are a songwriter. That's what you're supposed to do." So I had this song, I think it was called The Server, and obviously been waiting tables and working in the hospitality business and working hard, as you guys know.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first ideas. I think I played that song for him, and that was the one where he was like, "This is what you're supposed to be doing." So in that process, it felt like this is what excited me the most. It made me feel the most passionate about what it is and why I'm doing music. It wasn't just to be I want to look cool. Yeah, I want to look cool.
Yeah.
But that's short. live,
Yeah.
satisfaction, where you make a song about, this time you almost overdosed on drugs, or like you got in a high-speed police chase, in a 1986 Cadillac that you just bought with no insurance and no license and no registration in a new state, and you want to write a song about it called Never Gonna Catch Me. It's like, that's forever going to be there. And that memory is, that story is real, and it's always going to be in that song.
Yeah.
So that right now, talking about it right now, I'm excited, like thinking, I can't wait for, what else I'm going to do to create.
Yeah, your music is like a diary of your life. Like you create things that are close to you, and it's
your source inspiration, right?
Yeah,
You're
it's an outlet, and it's cool to be creating those things throughout your life.
Yeah.
And then be able to look back and know exactly what you felt and where you were at that time when you wrote it, and be like, oh wow. But then you actually have something like physical that you can like listen to, it's like a plus side of that. Like, going through that shitty time or whatever, now you're like, oh man, but I have like this beautiful thing that came out of a bad situation, that I think that's where a lot of musicians, like that's where most musicians gravitate towards, is writing from bad experiences, or experiences that typically are something that was negative,
like pain driven.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a form of therapy.
I find it the hardest thing to do is write a really happy song.
I don't think you've ever written a
I know I haven't. Like, everything I've ever written has always been like super sad and whatever, because I don't know. I don't
sad dude.
I just don't find the need to write when I'm happy. It's only when I'm like sad.
But you should try to take note of that, and actually try to I hold you to task on that. Like, just if you ever find yourself being happy, then try to write what that made you happy, because that's a rare thing in its own right. But like, also that might be an angle that you've never done. But like, you make really good sad songs. It's like a
it's avenue I have not dabbled in yet, but maybe someday. But so, do you think your music helped you get out? You said you had addiction and depression and stuff like that. Do you think it made it worse or made it better at you're at 20, 23, 22 at this time, and you're kind of going through these things, or is this later, a little bit later, or like
I think music,
like how did music affect your addictions or awareness of your own addictions?
Well, in hindsight, after I was able to stop, right, and get sober and get off, all that stuff, I think music played such a key role in that for me, in giving me a reason to live.
Yeah.
I think while I was out there, it wasn't like fueling it, but yes, I would do drugs and like think I would need this to create, because it's almost like the identity thing too. Like, who am I? And like, is this because I'm on drugs? And like, when I'm on drugs, I'm like, this artificial shit going on in my head where I'm like, I'm this rock star. So maybe it fueled it a little, or, but I think at the end of the day, music was always just such a source of like happiness and being able to tap in to something like,
it's like a safe place.
Yeah, it's like spiritual for me. Like, going to a show was always like going to church or something,
Even though you're smoking weed at 12 at shows.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, dude, I don't know what it is, man. Like, maybe there's like some, this addiction thing. Like, I feel like for me, looking back on my childhood, like there was always this sort of like hole, like I was trying to fill, like, somehow, some way, or like, and I think it just got worse as I got older. And I think music was always a positive. At the end of the day, it was always a positive. Like,
did you have that like kind of like weighing, like, am I going to be able to make music without this? Is this the reason why I have the creativeness? Your addiction, and then like, did you also have like a rock bottom moment, and you're like, I need to get my shit together. Like, I'm about to lose it all. Or you're just kind of like, I'm sick of feeling hungover and guilty.
There's quite a few moments. As far as the creative question about can I do this without drugs, like that was very like much a fear.
Yeah.
And when I first got sober, and I've stayed sober the entire time, so it's almost 18 years.
No shit.
Yeah. October will be 18.
Damn, dude.
It's awesome.
Thanks, man. I think it was pretty clear to me because I was clinging to something. And I lived in a rehab for like 14 months, right? And I was in an inpatient rehab for 90 days, and they allowed music in there. at this place I was at, and you could have a guitar. You could go borrow one from wherever it was. So you could, I can't remember it. So I remember early on feeling like, yeah, like, how am I going to do this? But then it was in the moments of like, you have time on your hands and you're just, in a, depression state all the time, and you're getting used to living life and feeling things without chemicals. So in that time it was like, oh, things were pouring out of me.
Yeah.
At least that's what the experience was for me. And then over time, it took a long time, but over time, it became such a practice of a routine for me to be able to do the work in terms of making the songs happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a long time, or I get inspiration.
Yeah.
But after a while, it was like, it's just like drinking. It's like, I don't think about drinking.
Right.
Yeah.
I used to have an obsession to drink and use drugs. I don't think about it anymore.
Yeah.
It's not even, it's like it never happened. Thank God,
It's like music became like your medicine almost.
Yeah, exactly. And then I got so used to, like, after it took a few years, like, of just going out and, working or being in society, like, without, like, this is that other guy that I was before, like, that's not me anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm this other person, and I don't, I'm like clinging to something, like, oh, I feel scared. I'm like, oh, I feel this, or like, I want to talk to her, and I don't know how, like, nervous or social anxiety. It's like, but after you go through it and get comfortable being uncomfortable for so long, it starts, it starts going away.
Yeah, there must have been like breakthroughs on stage too, where you're just like fucking like a whole bunch of like walls you got through just on like actually getting sober and stuff. It's like
I mean, I never, before I got sober, it was like picturing doing that without, alcohol or drugs was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
But there was also like, how am I going to do this, that, or the other without at least being stoned, or without this or without that? And it's all nonsense. It's all just bullshit.
Yeah.
And when your life is on the line.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of reasons why a lot of musicians or performers drink, is to take the edge off, because it's nerve-wracking. It's nervous to play in front of a bunch of strangers and be vulnerable and show something to them. So many people will drink or take drugs or all that stuff.
Yeah.
And just to get out of their head and not be nervous. And a great testament to you is every time I've seen you play, you are just cool as a cucumber, man. Like, like you, it's
Thanks,
almost
dude.
like there's no, like, you're just like, yeah, whatever, here we go. Like, there's no like sign of, and I've told you this before, like, you're
very polished.
Yeah, you don't
Thanks,
let, you may be, nervous in, going on stage or something, but you do not show it at all. And that's like one of the best things as someone watching, as an audience member, to see that oh, they're comfortable, they're not nervous. Like, because if you see someone perform and they're nervous, then it makes you kind of detaches you from the experience. You're more, why are they nervous, or why are they kind of like not themselves, And any like great performer, you see them just kind of let it all go, and they're just like talking to you like a normal person. You're like, oh, and it's more engaging that way. So yeah, you fucking masterclass of that.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, really.
I mean,
it really is.
years of doing it, but I feel like I kind of just let it, all the thoughts or whatever. It's like, I'm going up there and doing this regardless. And after you do it so many times in front of big crowds or nobody, it over time, like, you develop this way that you do it, and this comfort, and you enjoy it. I love it. Yeah. So I go up there, and it's like that feeling of like, oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm about to play, and there's like, it doesn't matter if there's 10 people, or I've played in front of 1,200 people, or literally to nobody, and driven 14 hours to get there. Literally nobody.
Shows too.
And every time, it's like the same thing. It's like, I'm going to try to perform like I'm at Wembley Stadium every time, and just enjoy it. Yeah. And really, and like, be in the moment, and like, just do the best I can, not be too, if I start worrying about something in my head, I just, like, I look at my bass player or my drummer and like laugh. It's like, we're up there, we're like adults, like playing loud rock and roll music. Like, come on,
this would be
let's have fun with this.
Yeah.
So if we're having fun, then
contagious.
Yeah, it's contagious. Yeah. And I feel like that's like my natural state. I think that's probably one of my best qualities, is like, the just getting up there and, and trying to be as charismatic as possible, but not thinking of trying.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
I was gonna say, like, you are charismatic, and you're just you up there, and it doesn't come off like you're trying to be a certain way. It's just like, that's Max, just playing his tunes and just having a good time, and that's such a hard thing to accomplish.
Once really. I like the songs start happening and I start singing these words that I connect with because they're me, you know, and they're my stories. And so once it's like you've written a movie and you're now screening the movie and everyone there is watching the movie that you made, but it's really your stories.
Yeah.
But it's just live.
Right, right.
And so once you kind of connect with that, what's happening yourself, I think it kind of takes off from there, you know?
Do you have that where like maybe do you still get nervous at all? Like before a show?
I got nervous before coming here to do this. I get nervous every single time, and I'm not like, especially with like singing, because I'm more of like, I think I wasn't like this natural born. I could never sing like my heroes, like Chris Cornell and whoever else. Like go down the line
Chris
forever.
Cornell.
Yeah, exactly. Or I mean, Kurt Cobain or Dallas Green from Sitting Colors, one of my favorite singers and huge inspirations. So for me, like I think I became a singer because I had no other choice, and I had to do it, and because and to tell my own story, and I think I could sing my songs better than anybody could because they're my stories.
Yeah.
But especially when it comes to that stuff, like dude, I get super nervous, you know, and if I didn't, then it wouldn't. You know, it wouldn't be exciting. It wouldn't, you know, I don't think it would matter as much.
Yeah, that's true.
Nervous is just a short version of nervous energy, right? So you still have this energy propelling you in some direction. You can like kind of have it lead you to like the, you know, and not have you like it make you just crumble in fear of it. You know what I mean? Like that's what you really have. Every comic I talk to has like the butterflies in their stomach before they go up, and like, that's really what like you want to have. There's a problem if you like are too overly confident. That can also be a tell. You know, as far as stand-up. I don't really know a lot of musicians that have that kind of thing where, like, I mean, I guess you could say Elvis, when like at the end of his career, was just laying on the fucking like floor in Vegas and shit, like, just fucking, So like,
although he sounded amazing, I think it's like the last video that Elvis ever, or the last show.
Did you see that when he did like the goodbyes to everybody, all that cryptic thing where he like was saying, "Hey, thanks you," and "Hey, Eric, thanks for everything you did." It's like his last show, and then he fucking died that night. But it was like he literally like said thank you and apologized to everybody.
When he played the piano, that last like live performance.
He sounded amazing when he did that last.
It was like dude, that was like a tearjerker.
Yeah.
Like seeing that like that performance, and then I mean, in retrospect, knowing like that's his last performance, but man, he just like gives it all, and you know, gives it his all, and it was just like
there's a lot of him to give.
There's a lot of him to give. And that guy, he like, how old was he? He was like 38 or something.
He's younger than us, for sure.
I think he was only 42. I think.
Yeah, he's like the same age as us. So it's like
crazy,
that's
dude.
great. And like when you think of Elvis, you think of like an old man that was like obese, that like you know, like all heavy and with the leather thing on, you know, he's whatever. And I'm like, dude, that guy was like so young. Like, how did he go from like this guy to like the guy that he was when he passed away? It's like just fucking crazy.
Fucking drugs.
Anything you want at any time, every second of every day.
Yeah,
for so long, and all the, you know,
handlers
like run down. So, but I guess going back to that, like, you know, on stage stuff and the performance, like, is that like when you get on stage, so you're nervous before a little bit, right? And then you get on stage, and then after you start playing, I think that's like, for myself, whenever I played, after like the first like minute of being up there, like all the nerves would just kind of go away, because then I would be like, okay, and now I'm just have to do the thing that we practiced a million times, you know? And it's almost like the anticipation is the nervous thing of like just waiting to get up, and then like, okay, and now it's this band, and then go, and then it's just like, okay, like let's just start the ride. It's like being on a roller coaster ride, and you're like, you hear like the clicks, and you click, and you're like, all right, just like let's just fucking go, and then it's just fun, you know? And I don't know if that is a similar experience for you.
Well, it's like when I know that I've done the work, in general, right? I've done all that I could to prepare. The band is prepared. I play with pros. We're all pros. We've all been doing it a long time. But first and foremost, I believe in myself, and I believe in my songs. Right. It's all about the songs for me. I mean, yes, performing them to the best of my ability, right? Is it ever going to be perfect? No, because you know, then that would be lame, in my opinion. Because we want the human element. Right. We want to hear, like, I want to hear when Dave Grohl is up there singing like the screaming part in Monkey Wrench, and like his voice cracks, or like he just can't pull that off the way he used to, but he's up there just doing the best he can, and it's, who cares? You know, it's like you have an amazing band and a great song, so I know for myself, I believe in myself and I believe in my music. And that's, at the end of the day, it's like once the show starts, it's going to be what it is. And sometimes up there, it's like, you know, people, like when there's not as many people there, you can kind of hear how people react to it even more so. Yeah. You know? Like I played a couple of shows last week and it wasn't like they were great, you know. Yeah. You know, it wasn't sold out, you know, I'm not there yet.
Yeah, yeah.
But I know I got positive feedback because I hear someone like, oh yeah, well, like what was that song or whatever you're doing, you know? And then it's like, oh cool, in like a month I'll play in front of like 300 people hopefully in Seattle, and like, you know, so it's just you know, it's
Are
just
you your biggest critic for your performances? I know that's like something like a lot of like usually people like artists are their own worst critic, you know, like you get like down on yourself for like, oh, I didn't do that good, or like I should have done this instead of that, or I flubbed this one note. Like that's I would always like, you know, just be like, it didn't matter who was out there. Like I could give a shit if it was 0 persons, if the guy mopping the floor, but if I had a killer show and I sang everything right and I played everything all the right notes, I would be like so pumped after that, even if nobody was there, more so than if there was like, you know, a bunch of people I was playing to and I had like a mediocre show and I would be like, yeah, but I fucked up this part and I fucked up this part, and you know, like I would just be in my head all night. So
yeah, I'm definitely, it depends. I feel like sometimes it depends on my mood of that day or that moment. Where I'm listening, because I listen back to everything. If I don't, usually I have video every show, like somehow, or at the very least I'll like record it on a voice memo. And my drummer and I, we call it the Stoke. It's like, oh, we gotta listen to the Stoke. It's like after the show, it's like if we have time, we'll like be in the car or the van or wherever we're at.
Yeah,
and we'll listen back.
That stuff,
so my drummer and I listen to every second. Sometimes we'll rewind it, and like if there's a moment that we liked or we didn't like, or something, we can like little details, you know, like the transition between this song and that song. Why don't we do this so like the show feels better? And it's always like little things. And sometimes you hear something, it's like, all right, well, you know, that was pitchy on that word, or that high note wasn't exactly spot on or whatever. But that's always like, as long as I keep at the front of my mind, like I'm having fun doing this. But it's like it's almost like I'm an athlete. It's like watching the tape back. Dude, like I learned that a long time ago, because if you can't do that, then how are you going to get better?
Yeah.
Like how are quarterbacks learning how to read defenses? Because they're watching tape.
It's fun to do that. Yeah. Like it's fun. Even if you fuck up, it's so much.
Because you're reliving the experience yourself too. You know what I mean? Like that's like the beauty of watching the game tape.
Because you might do something that you didn't necessarily think was a good thing, and then listen back and you're like, oh, that kind of worked. That's kind of better. I might just do that now. You know, like I don't know. It's he does that with comedy and stuff too. Always records his set.
But if I drop a line, I'm like, fuck. Like, you know, it might be like a good set, but there's like one fucking line I forgot. I'm like, shit. Then I get in my head about it. Or there's some kind of ad lib thing that I do on stage. And I've seen that, like, especially when I first started doing stand up, and I was like watching clips and shit, and like I can actually like see my brain. I'm like, oh, and like an idea comes through, and I like say the line, and it fucking like kills, and that becomes like one of the strongest parts of the joke. And you're like, that I think is the most magical thing, and that's when, you know, when it becomes really addictive. We're like, okay, like let's do another show, and I can watch that tape, and you know, keep fucking going, you know. So that's the most fun thing about like the performing aspect is kind of like reaping the rewards after you're done and seeing like who likes what songs, and then like how you can get your performances tighter and shit, man. The whole process is fun, dude. Like
it's never ending like competition with myself. Yeah. Like I'm making up all these things, like all these people are like, he sucks, you know, or whatever. Or I hear something back and I'm like, okay, I know I can do better. Like, damn, okay, that wasn't good, but I know I can do better. So it's like, okay, cool. How can I do that? How can I get better at that? Yeah. Okay, I'm humble enough. Like, all right, you know, I have a lot of it. I'm always going to be, you know, working on improving in all areas, particularly singing, you know, especially. Yeah. So whether it's like, okay, my vocal coach, I have a lesson coming up. So it's like, hey, listen back to this. What did I do here? Yeah. Like, how can I fix this? Like, so that's another thing I think that I've been very good at is surrounding myself with talented people that are better than me. Yeah. I want my band to be better than me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Yeah. And you get better. Yeah. Like that's what, absolutely. You know, that's what I learned a long time ago. You know, being at music school and learning from these guitar players who are like, what the hell?
Everything I've ever been involved with musically, all the musicians and people I played with were far better than me. So much better. I was always the worst guy in every band I've ever played with.
It's like Johnny Resnick from the Goo Goo Dolls. I heard him talking about that recently too, where he's like, "Oh, I want my band is way better than me.
Yeah.
Like I want them. You know, you want to be surrounded by people that are really great.
Yeah.
So, and that doesn't mean that I think that I'm not, you know, a professional musician. I definitely am, but still, like I want to always try to get better and, you know, improve the best I can, and also enjoy it as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I always like came up performing was like dealing with your voice, you know, so the changing of your voice, and people like don't understand that aren't singers that your voice is like this super delicate like thing. You know, like a guitar, you can like tune it, and like drum kit, you can tune it, and like all this other stuff. And they don't have to worry about like what they ate earlier or 5 hours earlier or what they drank or smoked or none of that shit. Like, it's such a delicate thing that to be consistent was something that I always struggled with as a singer in any of the projects I was involved with. Being able to like, oh man, I sang great this morning. Then now all of a sudden, like, I'm not that great, you know, at night. And I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't do anything different. I didn't like, what do I need to do? And that was the constant struggle with me as an artist, was like, man, like, how do I consistently get the same response out of my voice that I want every single night? And I was never playing as many shows as what you played, but we'd play like, you know, a couple shows, you know, a month or like every other week. You know, maybe the most we did was like 3 in a week or something like that. But even then, it was like how can I just have the consistency that I see everybody else being able to do? And that was always like the hardest thing as a vocalist. So knowing that you have like a vocal coach, I think I went to one session, and it was so fucking expensive. I was like, I couldn't do it. Like a buddy of mine sent me to his vocal coach, and he was in a big band and stuff, and he's like, oh, go to this guy, and I'm like, okay. And it was like $300 for like an hour, and I'm like, I can't do this once. So like, give me everything you know about the voice, and like give me all the fucking tricks and the trade, because I'm never coming back here. I can't afford to. But yeah, it was still like, even with the things that I was taught, it was just still such like a challenge, you know.
That's the best part of it, though, right? If it was easy. You know, if this stuff was easy, if writing like the perfect stand-up routine for an hour, like, you know, Dave Chappelle, whoever else we all love, right? If it was that easy, you know, that's the thing. It's like so challenging. And like, I've come such a long way from where I started, especially because I started out, even after music school, I was just like, all right, I'm just going to be a guitar player. Like, or at least I'm going to do this, and I'll do my songs on the side. And then I just got to a point where I didn't care about trying to get the gig for the big, you know, touring act and be a sideman. Like, I just didn't inspire me. What inspired me was songs. So after like so long of doing it, it's like, okay, I do A, B, and C before a show. I don't eat dairy. I don't eat heavy foods. Like, usually I don't eat at least a couple hours before I play. I try not to drink too much Red Bull. Or like too much caffeine,
carbonated
depending
stuff.
on how long the show is, what the temperature is. Like, you start learning all these things where like, is it hot in there? Is it summertime? Like, I don't want to have too much caffeine when it's hot out, because I'll get like more, it'll like affect me more. And it'll dry me out more too. It's bad for the vocal cords and throat. And then I just do my warm-ups. Like, I have a CD, like an old school from an older vocal coach that gave me, and I'm like addicted to it. So I do that. Like, I go through all these different exercises twice, so it's like 30 minutes or so, or like, depending on how, sometimes I'll do like half of it, sometimes I'll do it where I just want to keep doing it, where I don't, depending on how I'm feeling. But that'll like open, you know, it'll force you into like certain placements of your range,
right?
You know, whether it's in falsetto, and it's a routine of getting your voice there, right? So if I do all those things, it's like, all right, I got 10 minutes left. Am I going to worry about this?
So I did everything I could.
I'm already nervous. I don't need to be worrying about, you know, it's like,
I'm already nervous.
I've done all of it. And I'm going to do, we did a sound check. So I'll try to like sing some of my songs like in the bathroom.
How do you feel about, so being in like a rock band, like another thing that I struggled with when I was in like heavier bands was trying to sing over like when you're on, people don't understand, when you're on stage with a band, especially like a rock band, it is so fucking loud. up
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Like sometimes you
Yeah.
can be like screaming your lungs out, and all you hear is. You don't hear a fucking thing. So you're like, am I even singing? Like, what notes am I singing? Like, you can't hear anything. And every band I've ever played with was always like, crank it up past 11, like fucking double stack, like as loud as we can go, like everybody. And I'm like, dude, I can't hear anything. Like, you guys can, I don't even know how you can hear what you're doing. It's so fucking loud. And that was like, in-ear monitors I had and all that stuff. And even then it would just be like, I'm cranking that up loud, like everything was just maxed out. It was so frustrating. I'll be like, oh my god, like we, how is this possible? Like, how do people do this? Like, what is the fucking process for this? You know, I don't know if you have that problem with your band of being
so funny you're talking about that.
Loud.
I've been going through this process with like trying to learn a better way. And these things are expensive though, right? Like the right in-ear monitors and the band being on in-ears, and then. So we can like get the sounds from the album, and match them. Whether it was like some effect somewhere on a vocal or a synth sound or something, and match it, and then also we can hear it, so we can practice that way.
Right.
So we're all hearing the same thing. Now I've never used in-ear monitors before. I once or twice for like a guitar gig at a casino. I've done it, but as far as like my band all being on in-ears, I've never have. So we're basically just at the mercy of the sound guy or the sound woman, whoever's doing.
That's a whole other thing. That's a whole other aspect of live
the
performing.
Gatekeeper, the sound guy.
Yeah, the gate. Like when I started playing shows, it was like you gave the sound guy $100. Always, you just went up to him and said, "Hey, who are you? Oh, I'm a sound guy. Oh, nice to meet you.
It's yours.
Here's $100." Like, please, just because they could really fuck your shit up if they wanted to. They could just like, leave it fucking on, like the highs and the lows, and you're not even, being heard to the audience, or like, turn any effects on or off. Like, they could really fuck your shit up, or they could really make it sound, killer too. So that was another thing to be like, oh my god, like we all played great, but like. You couldn't hear anything, or like, it was just like there's so much control that they have, like, definitely the gatekeeper. So that's another aspect of playing.
It's a battle.
Live.
Every musician out there, whoever is watching this, is gonna relate to that.
They're like, oh yeah, that's so true.
It's always, it's never perfect. It's it's always like a challenge to get it how you want it.
Yeah.
I've done so many shows, in the hundreds of shows in so many different places and styles of however it's happening, in terms of like was there a sound person there or whatever, and am I hearing it? I'm listening in my head for like a lot of my songs I've done enough, even the ones that I like, aren't, are newer in the set list that I've made in the last year or two. Like I've heard them by myself enough and practiced them enough to where I know how they sound and feel. Yeah. And when your pitch is like, there, or at least close, or like, and it's like, if you can't in the moment, like I try to like turn my guitar down, I try to start there and have the band, hopefully the band is at a level, where you don't need to crank up your shit all the way. Yeah. And most sound people are, unless you want the mic to feed back, because then they're because you can't just up, everything up. You just can't do that.
Feeding back is the whole thing too.
It's like, but once the show starts, hopefully like you do the best you can with the sound, with the sound person, and then if you can kind of hear it, at a certain point, it's just like, fuck it. Yeah. You just bring it and sling it. You're up there, just you do your best, and you just have a good time with it, and rock it out.
What's your like out of like the venues on Sunset, right? Like the Viper, Whiskey, and all that shit. What's your favorite like of those like old school venues, like the Roxy, like sound wise? And
I've played the Viper Room probably at least 20 times.
Yeah,
really.
At least I've played the Whiskey a few times. I never played the Roxy, so I wouldn't be able to tell you about the Rock. I've been in many shows there, but I've never played there myself. I would venture a guess that the Roxy's the best out of. Really? I would think. Yeah. But as far as my experience of where I've played, I would say it's so hard to gauge that, because like the Viper Room had new monitors this time when we played, and the Whiskey. But I've probably had better sound. At the Whiskey, but I've had a lot more fun at the Viper Room.
Yeah. Just because it's like a little
better
tight
shows where we've done really well with Draw, or like
Yeah.
A I'll say that.
It's definitely
That's
like a
my-
more intimate setting at the Viper Room.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
any shows that I've seen there have always sounded really good. I was always surprised. I was like, oh, this like shitty dungeony fucking like place, and then the sound was always like really good.
It's so fucking tight. That's I had my
Yeah.
like 21st birthday at the Viper Room and shit like that, like
Wow.
20 years ago. But yeah, man.
Yeah, I
like-
guess because it is so small, like it's like having like a carpeted room when you get all the bodies
Yeah,
in there and shit.
exactly.
You know, it's just
Yeah.
deads the sound.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
feel like there's something. I don't know if it's like the specific history with the Viper Room, and with Johnny Depp being the owner of it, and Tom Petty was the first band that ever played there. Tom Petty, the
Really?
Heartbreakers. Yeah.
no way.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah. And then of course one of my favorite actors of all time, River Phoenix.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
passed away in front, like
Yeah.
Stand By Me. That was
Yeah.
one of my favorite
Absolutely.
movies ever. And so there's this history with that. Obviously, there's so much history at the Whiskey and the Doors. I love the Doors and all the other
Yeah.
bands. I mean, I could go on. But I think with the way that I don't know if it's maybe just a smaller spot or it's like darker and it's
Yeah.
just weird. I don't know what it is. There's an aura about the Viper Room to me
Yeah.
that I gravitate to more so than the Whiskey
Yeah.
now.
The lights
I don't know
and the
why.
thing and then all. Yeah.
It's just, and it's like a smaller room,
Yeah.
so it's easier to fill.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I agree with you. I feel like I like that
Yeah.
as far as venue. I don't even play, but as far as shows that I like to go to and stuff like that,
Yeah.
like the Viper Room, I would prefer going there over the Whiskey. And the Roxy's, I've like seen a shit ton of different bands there and stuff like that. It's always a good time, but like again,
Yeah.
I don't have any bearing because I've never played or performed there and stuff like that. But we'll get you in the Roxy, man.
What's like your favorite
Someday.
favorite
Bigger than
place that you've ever played? Because you've toured and done stuff in different states and whatnot. Best place you've ever played, and then best band that you've ever played with, or like your favorite band, or like the most fun that you got to play with.
Oh, without thinking about this for too long, the Roseland Theater is probably my favorite experience or place I've ever played in Portland, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
We opened for a band called Candlebox.
Oh,
Oh,
If you
yeah.
know Candlebox.
Yeah.
of course.
So, this is a cool story, but the singer from that band is a good friend of mine, Kevin. I met him at our place of business
okay.
long time ago
Yeah.
with another. He came in with his wife and another guest, right? Who was like this. He's like one of my favorite guests of all time at this place.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, and he has a southern accent, and when they came in, he was like, "Oh, I got a surprise for you tonight, Max." And I was like, "Oh, what's that?" He goes, "Oh, my friend Candlebox is coming," and he like called him Candlebox and said by his name, and I was like,
Pantera's coming. What?
how is this guy? How is he coming? How does he know? No way. I was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And I was like, and does he even know that I'm from Seattle? And like, I'm a, like, there's no, is this
Dude,
really
that was
happening?
one of the first albums I bought when I had like BMG music catalog and shit. Like I
Yeah,
just love
BMG
Cannibal.
Oh, I was
Yeah.
mad. I love them.
Yeah.
I still to this day. I mean, I love Kevin. He's an amazing human, and one of my homies that we've had like
Yeah.
So he
some
showed
fun
up.
times.
Or,
But he showed up, and this is like 11 years
Candlebox,
ago.
Max Candlebox.
Yeah, and he was like, I was introduced to him. He was like, "Hey, I'm Kevin." I was like, "Yeah, I know." He's like, "You know who I am?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I know you are. I'm from Seattle, dude. Like, what are you talking about? I played music too. Like, of course." He was like, "No way." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh yeah, me and my friends used to ride our bikes around looking for the video, the house where you guys supposedly shot the video for Far Behind.
yeah.
Their biggest.
Yeah.
I think it's their biggest song. Yeah, their biggest song.
For sure.
Anyway, but so that started a friendship from that night, and like just hanging for years. And then when they had, it was in 2000, I think it was in the fall of 2018. Kevin was looking for a couple bands to open, a couple shows. And I was like, me, and so he made it happen. So and the other
dope.
band that we played with is a band called Ages. They're amazing. Check them out if you haven't. They're really, really good. Like melodic, like kind of hard rock, metal-y, like amazing.
Cool.
The singer from that band is in Chevelle, the band
Okay.
Chevelle.
Okay.
So those guys are all good friends of ours, and so it was Candlebox, Ages, and Max Fite. So that was like one of the most memorable
Yeah, absolutely.
the opening slots opportunities that we ever gotten. But yeah, we
That's
did really
sweet.
well that night at Roseland Theater. It was like packed, sold out show, and by the time we were on like our third or fourth song, it was like starting to feel like, and next thing I knew, it was like, I mean, it started out, there was like, 4 or 5 deep, and there was plenty of room, and I was like, okay, no pressure. We're fine. And then we just it was one of those shows I don't really remember much of because it just went so well. Like I was just in the moment. Like we just.
That's probably like the best thing. You kind of like ease into like a giant crowd, you know? They're like, there's only a couple of people. And then like third song, you're like, oh shit, there's like a few hundred people. And then like the you know, middle of your set, you're like, there's a lot of fucking people.
Yeah, like there's like the risers and like everyone was just everywhere and it was just like full. It was like a Where's Waldo, you know, thing. And it was just like you talk on the mic and that kind of like in that kind of a theater and it's just like, whoo, like you feel this energy back. It was crazy. So at the end, I was like, we really did do great up here. And Kevin from Candlebox is on the side of the stage in the wings like clapping and like cheering us on.
That's so cool.
And so to have one of your heroes
like
I mean of all time, you know, I have many of them, but to ever even just meet him, let alone being able to open for him and he was watching you and we're friends, like it's a pretty cool experience. So I remember like running off the stage and we used to do this thing where I would say like at the end, like, we're Max motherfucking Fite from Los Angeles, California. And we would like make noise and I would run off the stage. And we did this there. So I'm the first one off after I yell into the microphone. I run off and Kevin's there like clapping and, you know, gives me a big hug and was like, that was awesome, dude. Like whatever. And then he was like pushing me back out there. And I was like thinking, oh shit, I gotta get my stuff out of there, like my pedals. I'm like, I gotta get my shit out of there. So I go back out, and like as soon as I go back out, the crowd was just roared at us. It was like, you know, and I was like, whoa! And I think he was trying to tell me to get back out there to like, you know, have another moment in front of everybody or whatever because they loved you. So I go back out there, and I was like, oh shit! And everyone's roaring at me, and then we took a photo. You know, we've got a couple good pics from it, but yeah, that's the most. That was like, okay, if nothing else ever happens, man, that was like the greatest.
That is
a
fucking cool ass story.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Like, that's like I think it's so cool, like, hearing musicians just, like, those experiences that you get to have from being a musician, like, whether you become the biggest thing ever or you don't get those experiences without trying. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah.
Those are priceless. Those are like the coolest things about it. You know, those interactions, those moments, like those special times that nobody could pay for that experience. Like nobody. Yeah. You know, and that's like the coolest thing. Like,
I have a clear thought of or memory. I remember when I first started. It's like these goals, right? Like setting realistic goals. So, and I remember at the time, like when I first started doing my own music in like 2015, I started, and 2016 is when I, put out the first EP. And I remember thinking then, like, I just want to have like my own band of players and have my thing out there. I just get on a stage and like get through the show and like have fun and be like taken seriously and be able to like get on stage and do it. Yeah. And then it's like, I want to just like do, I want to like play like at the Whiskey and we did that. And then I want to play here and we did that. And then I want to go on tour and we did that. And it's like you keep chipping away at little things that are attainable, not like, I want to get to Wembley Stadium. Like, and it's like, oh, cool. How
2025 Live Aid. Yeah.
Like, watch, like, it's like, okay, focus on the music. So the more I focus on the music, and the more like hard work I put into that, I noticed that like other people start coming in and they start playing roles in your life. And next thing you know, it's like I'm at Rosen Theater, or I've several other stories like that where I'm playing at the Belly Up in Solana Beach and I'm opening up for Mike Ness of Social Distortion, another one of my heroes. And
absolutely.
Hanging out with him, and he's like, "You're up, man."
No shit.
Like, how's this happening?
Yeah.
But it's like the point is like if I have this negative thing in my mind, right? That it doesn't go away. Sometimes it's quieter. Some days it's I have like friends that. Old sober friends that would like call it K-fuck radio. Like they woke up with K-fuck radio playing. And it's like all this stuff that is going on in my head, and most of it is dark and negative. And if I believe it, then how am I going to feel about myself?
Yeah.
But if I just do the work and put one foot in front of the other and keep my mind where my feet are, and just work on stuff, it's like I've achieved so many things where at one point it just seemed like, how am I ever going to get there?
Yeah.
And it's like, and not to mention, like when I have gotten like where I am now, I'm in a much better, state than I was 5 years ago because I love my music so much more now. But it's like, of course, like I've reached this point. Now it's like, okay, where else am I going?
Yeah.
Now I want to get to the next point. So it's like about, okay, Like I need to enjoy my life right now and today.
Yeah.
In this moment, every day. And then if I have that mindset, then, and just keep doing the work, I believe, because based on my experience in my life, I believe that other great things are going to happen, and the universe is therefore conspiring in my favor.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
100%. I think that's like a great outlook to have. And I think another big aspect of that is you're also a really nice guy. You know,
Likewise.
like, you know, so like that plays a big role into like the people that you attract and the people that will respect you and be like, oh, like, you know, for the candle box guy, like, you know, he's
Kevin,
gonna,
yeah.
maybe he had
What's up,
like,
Kevin?
yeah, maybe there was like a bunch of other people that, you know, he could have, but he was like, oh, like Max, I like Max. Max is a nice guy, and I like his music, and I want to give him a shot. You know, like those little things, those little interactions that you have, and how you're known to people around you definitely like allow you to have more opportunity. You know, and that's just
100%.
just a fact of like life of just being like, you know, good person. You know, it's gonna attract good people.
That is exactly where all that came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, just going to our place of business with a good attitude.
Yeah.
And being, you know, it's like, it's true though. It's like, it's not easy to do that job. And I see a lot of people that have a harder time with it whilst they're doing it.
Yeah.
And I like people too.
Yeah.
I love people actually. I love being around people. Like, I could go on and on. We would need 5 podcasts for us to talk about all that stuff, right? But I feel like I thrive in those environments, and I just like meeting people and getting to know people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's a natural thing for me. But in that, you know, in that instance, or just generally speaking, like, you just never know
Right.
what's going to come from whoever you meet, and if you're kind and in a bad mood and
not open up.
Work through it, you know what I mean?
You're
Yeah.
closed off and you don't want to, you
Yeah.
know, have a conversation or talk to somebody, especially at our place of business. It's like I would say, you know, 90% of the time, it's just a conversation that you just have organically, and you have no idea who anybody is really. You know, or for myself, I don't know who anybody is, and I'll just talk to people, and then it turns out that this person is this person, or this person knows this person, or like there's like a, you know, a connection with something, or you both know someone in common, or like you have the same interests. You know, it's just kind of like that. Being social, and being open-minded, and being willing to, I guess,
Being present, really.
learn about other people too, and like I'm always interested in learning. Like, as dumb as I am, you would never know it, but like
one of these days it'll start to stick.
Yeah, one of these days. But I'm fascinated about like other people's like lives and the way that they chose to live them. And living out here, you really meet a lot of people that do something that is out of the norm, and that's so interesting. You know, it could be a billion different things. You know, and you're like, there's always something to learn from that too. So.
absolutely.
You being one of them, you know? So that's kind of like the you know, I guess probably like the biggest theme of this podcast is that everybody that we have had on here gives such a interesting perspective on what they're doing and how they got there, and you know where they're going, and everybody is different, and there's no right or wrong way to do it, and so you can take little nuggets of like, you know, information and like gold that you can just kind of harvest from everybody, and like learn something from everyone. Everyone has something to teach someone else,
especially when you're around people that are like that have been working in your field or whatever field it is.
Right.
Like there's people I've worked with that are maitre d's, and they're like so focused and so passionate about what they're doing, and they put that work ethic in and watch it develop. And it's like being around people like that. It's like being around people that are better than you, or that are, whether it's musicians or actors or producers or lawyers. Like I know lawyers that are like killing it. And it's like there's the same, like I look at that, I'm like, okay, like imagine how many years of work that this person has put in to be in that position.
Right.
You know, and just being around that and learning from that experience.
Or they're like a lot of times I find it interesting their approach to whatever thing that they're successful in, or they're trying to be successful in, is their approach to pursuing that.
Yeah.
And I always find that interesting, because it's usually like, there's like, again, there's so many different ways, or like, oh, this is what I did, or I focus on this for, a short time, or, it's just really, really interesting all the time.
Yep.
I'm never like, oh, that was lame. I'm always like, well, that's always like so interesting. But yeah. So what do you got going on in the future? What shows you have coming up? What do you have any singles or albums that you have coming out?
All the above. All the above.
All the above.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a song coming out on, I think it's Wednesday, July 3rd. Yeah, because the 4th is Thursday. That song's called Shattered Glass. That's coming out July 3rd in a few days. I have another single coming out called Fire Alarm on July, I believe, 28th. Yeah. At the end of July. That's a fun one. Mm-hmm. That's a banger. They're both really good, but they're totally different. I will be in Seattle on August 1st, playing at Slim's Last Chance. And then we're going to Bellingham. I believe we're playing a venue called Ramble Tamble. That's August 2nd. And then August 3rd, we're in a little town called Glacier, Washington, which I think is either where Mount Baker is, where the ski and snowboard mountain, I think, or it's close by it. So we're there on August 3rd. And other than that, working on other bookings in town, in LA and around. So we'll see what comes up.
Sweet. And where can people find you on social media? Instagram, TikTok?
TikTok is Max_Fite, and we're on TikTok right now, I think.
Oh, shit.
Oh, actually,
that's right.
Oh, no, I think I think it froze. Or it does
was
like
live for a minute.
You have to,
Yeah,
there's
I
like a
was watching.
security thing where after a while
Oh,
they're like,
you have to
you have to do something to like verify you're still there. Anyways, yeah, Max Fite, MAXFITE, everywhere except on TikTok. I think it's Max_Fite.
Okay.
And then Instagram is Max Fite. I have a website which needs to be updated, but MaxFite.com,
Okay.
YouTube, Max Fite, all of it. And there's
Sweet.
I have a bunch of videos out. I'm always putting up like live stuff and doing TikTok lives or Instagram lives or all of it. I'm always kind of just
Yeah.
in the motion of making stuff and all aspects of this thing. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, encourage everyone to go to all the social media and websites and follow Max Fite.
Please
check
do.
out some shows. We'll see everybody watching this at Max's next show.
Yeah.
So, Tony Klein, where can people find you, buddy?
At Tony Klein Comedian on Instagram and social media. The Rooftop of the Everly Kimpton next Thursday, the 11th. This podcast every Monday. And Eric, do your 20-minute spiel.
You can find me at this podcast, theericandtonyshow.com. You can buy yourself a mug or a T-shirt to help promote the show and support the show. Every Monday we put out the full episode of this podcast on YouTube, and then the full audio on Spotify every Monday as well. And then throughout the week, we do 60-second clips on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts. So you can kind of get a little cliff notes of the guests we have on and what we've been talking about. But that's where you can follow this podcast. And thanks again, Max.
Yeah,
thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on. It was
fun.
Yeah, it was a good one, man.
Yeah.
We gotta have you back on
Learning
again.
a little bit.
Absolutely.
We're learning.
Yeah.
We're all learning.
Yeah, I'm glad we made it happen. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
man.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. Episode 49. It's in the bag, man.
Sweet.
All right, peace.